to say yes and then just knock it out of the park. Maggie! Amazing.
Hello, Middlebury.
So, it's been 20 years since you've seen it.
Yeah.
How'd you do?
I mean, I dug it. I would be very curious to take the temperature in the room. I mean,
It's pretty hot, I think.
but I think I just ran up the stairs. But I think it's very, very naughty, and it remains very naughty. And I think I feel okay about it.
So, you were younger than you are now when you got this part, and I want to try to take you back to sort of reading the script when you got it from your team, and then the day you got the part. What were the feelings you had? What were you thinking? What was happening in your life at that moment?
Okay, I do kind of remember. I was, I guess I must have been maybe my senior year at Columbia, or just after I finished college. So I was 21 when I graduated, so around then, 21, 22, and I was like, I read that script and I was like, this is a feminist movie. You know, this is a movie. And I think I still think that. I mean, I think it's interesting because the feminist woman, whoever that was, comes in and puts a bunch of literature down and says, we'll read this first. Oh, and someone else says at the end, there are much more conventional ways to love. But I don't think anyone fighting for equality and power and space for the minds of women would ever want to find themselves telling us that you can't love how you want to, you can't desire what you want to, even if it's totally unconventional, and even if it stretches the edges of what we think is okay, you know? Anyway, I think I was thinking about shit like that when I was in college too. And so when I read the script, I was like, this is amazing. But I was a little freaked out, I guess, to be honest, at that time about the sort of not freaked out. I didn't want it to get too literally enmeshed in the S&M stuff. I wanted that to be a bouncing off point, to be about everybody. Anyway, I was a jobbing actress. I didn't I don't know, I did not have it. I didn't have any credits, but I got this audition. I auditioned for Steve Shainberg, who was the director, and it was a killer audition. And he was great, and he was giving me notes, and I was really understanding them and really speaking his language. And then they were like, but he's really into you, and this is really a possibility. And for me at the time, to get a lead in a movie was, it just hadn't happened before. And then he went and offered it to every famous actress you can imagine first. Reese Witherspoon, Samantha Morton, who was a brilliant actress who was a big deal at the time, and I mean all sorts of people. And I just waited and waited, and eventually he came to me. And I mean, the truth is there's no world in which we would have been able to finance this movie, period. But with an unknown actor, I just don't think it would have been possible now. There was this kind of moment of indie film in the late 90s. This was, I guess, 2001, where that was possible.
Yeah. I was watching it from an actor's point of view, and I was amazed at what you were able to do between the lines and in such a subtle way. And I'm wondering, do you have an identification of where is that just a native talent for you? Were you just, is that something that you sort of studied as you were growing up watching film? How did you do that? The first lead role, I mean, that's incredible to me.
Well, you know, exactly. That is what I'm into. I like it and when I watch the movie, I do think the acting feels a little old-fashioned. You know, I'm like, wow, like, old-fashioned acting. It's like no other time. But I know what you mean. It's like everything about the interaction between us is not in the literal. It's the same with the film that I directed. I hate that. I don't really ever want to see the meaning, the intention, the purpose articulated in the literal. You know, I feel like the audience, I know many people here in this audience tonight, and I know that they don't want to be spoon-fed that either. It's boring. They want to be able to play a part in understanding the interaction. And what they're picking up might not be exactly what I'm putting down. And that's cool.
Right.
But there were a few places in here where I was like, ooh, you don't need to hear me say that, or you know, because it is all communicated in between the lines. But that's a good script, I think. Like that's excellent. But also, I'll tell you the craziest thing. So Steve Chamber, who directed it, and I we start rehearsing in LA without a Mr. Gray. And I also think they just didn't have their money. And I have no idea. I didn't know anything about that stuff at the time. But how could they have possibly had their money with me and this script? So we start rehearsing and we're talking and we're working, and I'd never done this before. And he's really great. Like, I don't even totally remember those rehearsals that much, but like really definitely exciting artistic interactions. And one day I hear this message on his machine he like plays it, and it's this wild woman's voice. I don't know what she was saying, some tripped out stuff about the script. And he was like, that's this incredible woman. She's like an actor whisperer. And I've been working with her. Okay, then the whole time we're working, he's telling me that he's shoot, giving me these incredible notes, wild, trippy, really interesting, freeing notes. And it turns out that they've been, at least in some part, coming through this woman whose name is Penny Allen, and who was working with Peter, my husband, who I didn't know yet at the time. And Peter suggested later, I mean, I guess I met you right before the movie came out, and you said to me, you should meet Penny. She's this amazing woman. And I go meet Penny. Penny then became, I was a little meandering story, but she's dead now, like probably the most important artistic force in my life. She taught me so much of what I value, and I think about her every day. And really my introduction to her came through Steve. So I'm sure that had something to do with the freedom that I felt. And also, I was 22 or something, and I was actually moving in my life into being a grown-up woman. And it was happening in some ways as we were shooting the movie. You know, having an artistic voice, taking responsibility for it. I felt that when we finished the movie, like I was a different person than when I started it.
Well, it's such a courageous performance. Anyone who's done it knows that it's 20 times harder than it looks, and you had really difficult psychological circumstances and physical circumstances, and it looked effortless. And at the end of the film, she's so strong. I'm wondering, playing that character, your experience with Penny, what would you now go back and tell the 22-year-old you, if you could? What would you go back and tell her, if anything?
I think I would say, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to push it. You don't have to show anyone anything. It's all in you. And I can see, like, I feel in some ways like I don't know who that person is, and on another level I think, that's my mind up there. It's the same mind like when this character at the end just looks into the camera and basically is saying, I dare you to tell me that I can't love like this. I was dead before. I'm like, I don't know, I'm so proud of having known that then. Yeah.
It's really beautiful. Would you welcome a few questions?
Yeah, totally.
Cool.
Especially from people who maybe like think, I'm curious to know if it's upsetting too.
There's this gentleman here.
I know you walked in the spanking scene. I saw you.
Well, I had gone to the bathroom. I'm not.
If you didn't like it, that's why.
No, it wasn't that at all. I actually want to thank you for your performance in this, as well as The Lost Daughter, which I felt really very moving to me. And I'm not sure how to ask this question exactly, but just thinking about both films, like for you, is there a thread in terms of the experience of doing this one and doing The Lost Daughter? Like, is there some kind of thread maybe between the two films for you?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, both in like the artistic intention of the movie and also in the experience. Like this was, I had some jobs before and I did this or that. I mean, I had Penny Marshall tell me she didn't like my face and that I had to wear a towel over my hair and pretend like I just got out of the shower so my eyes wouldn't go down. I mean, I had some complicated experiences on film, where you're like, okay, what? But this one was full of love. This one, my director, James Spader, I remember the woman who did the costumes, the incredible costumes. Everyone was interested in helping me and me them, find my self-expression. And then I went and worked on, over my career, I've had a few other times where that's true, where I was like, oh, we're interested in helping each other together express ourselves. And other times where people were were terrified and interested in wielding their power or whatever. But this one was about love. And lots of times people have asked me, like, what have I taken from my acting experiences into my directing? And that was the major thing, was that when people are loved, they do the bravest work beyond what you could have possibly imagined. And they just give you gifts all the time. And you can't fake loving people. You have to actually love them. But if you do, it's like this incredible mutual flowing thing that happens. And that happened to me in this, and that's what I tried to create also on The Lost Daughter. And of course, it's also about a very aberrant situation. Both movies. People who it's difficult to accept and to take in, sort of mind-bending in a way, and yet the challenge is to try to understand and love them anyway, which is a practice in doing that with the people around you and yourself, So I think they have to do with each other for sure.
Amazing. There's another one in the middle up there. Raise your hand.
This is sort of a two-pronged question, because I agree, I think, that this is a feminist film, but I'm wondering, the ending is awfully normalizing, right? It's highly conventional.
Oh, like that they go get married and
Right.
Yes.
And I guess I would also ask, how to put this? Does it hit different post-Me Too for you? Or is it just that desire can't be neatly boxed?
Wait, what do you mean?
Just watching this, after this sort of societal reckoning, messy and incomplete, right? Does this movie sit differently with you or
Well,
not?
I think it's way more dangerous. I mean, you have someone's boss coming over and saying, would you please sit down next to me? And did you make love last night? And like, I mean, utterly unacceptable things where you can just shut the door and be like, someone did, I heard someone say, he's such a creep. But it's I mean, in a way, I don't know, it's like, God, I've had conversations with my friend who I'm looking at right now about like, you know, can you, I might need some more time to think about this, so, but I think, is it a better movie if he is pushing it all the way to the very edges of what we can tolerate in a post-Me Too world or a pre-Me Too world?
Well, he's also grappling with it, right? He writes the letter that this is.
Yeah, but so what if he's grappling with it in a way, you know? I mean, really what's important is that she is consenting. At every single step, she's consenting. She's not only consenting, but she's then coming and asking for it. I mean, there's the story, which I'll tell really quickly, which is that like when we were shooting it, we shot the spanking scene. And then every time we shot it, because you know, when you shoot it, you're shooting the same scene from the camera here, same scene from the camera here, same scene from the camera here. Every single setup we shot, he sort of falls over me onto the desk and puts his hand next to me, and I grabbed his hand with my pinky. And I knew that they weren't shooting it. And I told James, and he said, you've got to tell Steve, because it's this non-literal, totally clear message of consent. And I told them, and they shot it. So yeah, as I was watching it, I was like, is she consenting? And if she is, and she's doing something that is even more unacceptable now than I think it was a few years ago, what do we do with that? I mean, what do we do with a woman that chooses that and desires that and wants that? I don't know.
So we'll do like a couple more questions. The young man, okay.
I actually have I guess it's kind of building on your question, because I was sitting here occupying that same what about me too space,
Yeah.
which is feeling like if I were your mother and you were 21 and this was your first movie, I would have wanted an intimacy coordinator on that set or something, which of course didn't exist then. Do you feel like what is done now to make movies that have that kind of intimacy explored in that, whatever context it is, but especially the more physical intimacy, the fact that they now are more regulated because of that fear of exploitation, which 20 years ago was a very real concern. Do you think it would have affected your performance having that kind of intervention?
I mean, listen, Last Tango in Paris, somebody recently told me the story that, and justified, what's her name, the actress? Maria Shriver. Maria Shriver. You know, there's this famous scene where Marlon Brando puts a stick of butter up her ass on camera, and recently she said that she didn't know that that was going to happen, and that she didn't know what to do. So I had this guy say to me recently, he was French, you know, they wanted a woman, not an actress. They wanted a woman. And I was like, I'm sorry, she's a woman and an actress. Marlon Brando fucking knew that he gets to be actor and a part of the artistic process, but she doesn't. And she wasn't able to say no because she's got Marlon Brando and all these fancy people, and she felt scared, and I think that's fucked up. At the same time, I was on the production that invented an intimacy coordinator. That was on The Deuce. And I guess in some ways I'm like, I don't you know? I'm from like another generation. I took care of myself, that's how I feel. I'm like, and I took care of all the younger ones, and the older ones took care of me, and there was always someone. I mean, I remember a makeup artist who like came up to me and was like, not on this, on this. I was fine. I felt like free and really taken care of. I've been misquoted like all over the place about this movie saying that I felt I was taken advantage of. That's someone's fantasy. I was not taken advantage of. I was really thinking part of the artistic process. Nobody ever asked me to do something I didn't want to do. At the same time, I have been in the, I mean, honestly, I think about it sometimes, I'm like, all the people I could cancel. I mean, it's not, but that's beside the point. The point is that I happened to be somebody who found a way through, right? I learned from the times that I didn't say no, and how to say no, or how to say what I needed artistically. I found a way through. I always found an ally. And I have also been on sets with people who weren't able to do that. And so I watched on The Deuce, you know, which is a television show about prostitution and porn, young actresses who weren't able to speak for themselves, had 2 lines, were psyched to have the gig, and were half naked the whole time. Now, I believe that it is part of my job as an actor in that production with those people to keep an eye on them. That's how we did it. But I think it's great that there is somebody else now who can do that, who can be really, really black and white and clear about consent. I mean, really, it's all about consent.
I just want to make one point, and there's nothing to say that if you got the wrong intimacy coordinator, they couldn't take advantage of somebody. So you really do have to always advocate for yourself on set, no matter what.
It's hard when you're young, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, and you're happy to be there, and you don't want to upset anybody, and, you know, I had an intimacy coordinator on The Deuce come over to me in a very complicated, difficult scene and say, you know, it doesn't look so good when you have your leg like that, maybe, and I was like, whoa, no, I can't have that in my head right now. I don't, and at the same time, that same woman, like, was amazing and helped me with so many things. I was like, what, really? You know what to do? I mean, we had to make up on The Deuce. I don't know. Before we had the intimacy coordinator, which happened in the 2nd season, me and the costume designers had to build things to protect my body from being too close to other people. And we made up these like cool things with yoga mats inside of pillowcases. Like, you know, but then the intimacy coordinator did all of that work for me. I was like, oh, do you know about our thing? And she was like, I do. And I've also got these 8 other things you can choose from if you like. And I was like, oh, well, cool. You know, I think it's great. I mean, I do. I think in a lot of ways it's really great. But I do think I also think that ideally there's space for utter, total consent and artistic freedom. And that's a complicated thing to hit.
There's one right here.
I don't need a microphone because I have a big voice. But I want to know, you at 22, in your process, what did the worm mean to you?
I don't remember, but when I saw it here, it meant like all the perversity, all the shame, all the things that we think are sick and disgusting that we can't allow ourselves to look at. And she's like, look at it. And I loved that. And the way he circled it too, I knew James, I didn't see him do that scene, but when I watched it, I was like, he knows too. You know, put it on the table. Because that shit will kill you if you don't get it out.
And the worm held up really well.
Hi.
We'll do one more up here.
When you're filming complicated people doing complicated things, there's always a risk, I suppose, that someone watches the film or the TV and they walk away with something you didn't intend.
Yeah.
I'm imagining a young guy who comes into this film and he watches it and he thinks, Lee's a hero, it's okay to smack your secretary, self-harm is sexy, this is great, and they walk away. When you're filming something like this, what are you thinking, what are you doing to try, and are you thinking of this to try and counteract this and make sure that the message that you want to get, which is not any of those things, I think, the right message goes on the right pedestal?
Well, that's more of a directorial question, right? I mean, I didn't direct this movie. I am now a director, and I think directorially, well, there's two answers to it. I mean, I can't be responsible for everybody's point of view or what everyone takes out of the film. But I think like laziness in your thinking allows for misunderstandings, obviously. I guess I would say that there are things in this film, I mean, yeah, sure, you could take all of those things, self-harm is sexy, and what else is okay to smack your secretary, like, I guess you could do that, but I think you'd be pretty far-fetched to say that's what the movie's saying. I actually felt like there were places where it felt too, we're justifying what we're doing, we need you to understand what side of the line we're on. Those, they kind of bugged me a little bit. Like I would say in some ways we could have trusted the audience more to know that that isn't what we were saying. But at the same time, like I said, look, I didn't direct it. I can't really be responsible for that. It's one of the amazing things about being a director is that you get to be responsible for that.
Well, speaking of directing and acting, tonight you're going to be the recipient of Vitelli for your work on both sides of the camera. A big thank you to you and Peter for coming and sharing your talent and time with us.
I know that this is the first film festival, and when I made The Lost Daughter, I was like, I really hope they ask me to come be in the middle of I mean, this is my community and a lot of my friends, and I'm really, really grateful for my teddy bear, and more than that, to have been included in this festival. I really was so glad to be asked.